Welcome back to the Real Estate Insider Podcast, a show where we cut past the headlines and talk to the people doing the real work in real markets, often in corners of real estate most people don't even think exist. I'm your host, Jared Sawyer. I've been doing mortgage lending for 22 years, and I can tell you this, the American dream is changing. In a world where down payments feel impossible, first-time ownership is getting pushed later and later, and a lot of people are looking for alternative paths that are actually doable. Today's guests live in that alternative world. Clay and Sammy of Arizona Desert Rat Realty, not Rate Realty, Rat Realty, and this niche off the grid land owner builder opportunity offer an alternative way of getting into a house. And they are going to go through their unique process and how they get things done and walk us through basically what this new trend is kind of going on. So guys, thanks for joining the show today. Thanks for coming in. You know, when I talked to Clay before, this was really unique and off the beaten path. And so it got me really excited to chat with you guys because I think that people get so caught up in the, I have to buy a single family home and I have to buy it in a subdivision, or I have to buy it on my own land and do my own thing with it, that they oftentimes overlook what you guys are doing. So I don't want to give away too much of your secret sauce here because this is the area you guys operate in, but if you wouldn't mind just kind of each introducing yourself real quick, and then I'd like to go right in and just hearing the strategy here and how you guys came about this.
Okay, so my name's Clay Greathouse. I've lived in Arizona about 7 years now. Lived off grid in Colorado. Lived an alternative life up there for 30 plus years, and then moved down here and continued living the lifestyle. And we're using what we have available here, the owner builder opt out permit, and we're building a hyper adobe house between Tombstone and Bisbee. And Sam.
Hey guys, my name's Sammy. I'm a real estate licensee. Clay's my broker. Anyway, I moved out to Arizona about 7 years also. I used to be a contractor, and I was building alternative houses like straw bales and earth bags and things. And now I live in my own earth bag house. I'm kind of looking at it in the background here, and I really got tired of building, and so real estate was a natural transition for me to still help people into their dream home, but not build it anymore. And the people that are like Clay and myself that want to do this thing, they tend to gravitate towards it. There's not much to our strategy other than us being able to walk the walk and talk the talk.
Gotcha. So for someone meeting you first time, describe off the grid earth back homes. Because that's such a unique way of putting it. It's such a different concept. What is it exactly, and how do people go about figuring this out?
Go ahead, Sam.
Well, I mean, what it is, I mean, you kind of nailed it in the head. The intro, Jared, is we're all trying to capture our American dream in some way. And so, building with the materials that are available to us and using the laws that are here in Cochise County that allow us to be owner builders and have permitted home sites that, we own, we're not paying a mortgage on. It really opens up a new option for the buyer pool that doesn't exist in a lot of the counties. So I guess off-grid living to us is just, the freedom we were promised long ago that a lot of us can't achieve anymore.
Wow, that's a great way of putting it. So what was the moment for, I mean, this is for Sammy or Clay. I mean, either one of you guys feel free to jump in, but what was the moment where you discovered the owner builder kind of opt out and realized, wait, this changes everything? I mean, you talk about the freedom we were promised, and a lot of things in the world have changed since those promises were written in. But this does get back to it. When was that moment that it just kind of clicked for you, and you saw it, and you're like, wow,
Well,
this is amazing?
So when we moved out, so in Colorado, we built kind of under the table. We tried to get a permit. It was going to be so expensive and stuff that we were way up in the mountains. So we just built and weren't really ever discovered or anything. So when we moved down here, because we're always nervous, we're always worried about somebody showing up and condemning our house and everything. So when we moved down here, we wanted to do it the right way. And so I started researching right after I bought our property. I started researching and came across a YouTube video from this guy named Handyman, and he was talking about this opt-out permit that was available, and I'm like, watching this going, you mean I could just build the way I want and don't have to hassle with it all? And I was just enamored. So anyway, that was the epiphany.
Thank you for sharing that. So when you guys talk about alternative structures in your world, what does that mean? Walk me through some of that.
Well, I think what we mean by alternative is materials. The international building community puts a lot of restrictions on what we're looking to use, mostly concrete, timber, and rebar. Like those are the materials people are comfortable with. Engineers and architects, those are the things people are comfortable with. We are using materials that put those traditional means outside of their comfort zone. But there's a lot of pride when you build your own house. So people are still building sturdy structures. They're not building pallet houses that are blown over in the wind and then things that get swept away in the flood. Like, Clay and me's house is bulletproof, it's flood-proof, it's fire resistant, never going to get eaten by pests or eaten by termites or invaded by rats. Like, the walls are 20 inches thick. So alternative is just a way to blanket term anything that isn't code compliant, I guess.
And I'll add that there's another, we're talking, earth bags, straw bales, foam domes, we got all kinds of stuff, but there's also a lot of people taking advantage of this by using like making shed conversions. And that's just an affordable way for people who don't have really the knowledge, or they want to dedicate to 7 years to build a house or whatever, to get into a place and be out of debt, who can do it for $1,000 and they're all out of debt, and they own a house. So that's always the other alternative too, is using different, like I say, they buy tough sheds and convert them into houses. So that's another way too. So
Now
Yeah, that's a good point,
yeah,
Clay.
so for people that maybe are visualizing this a little bit different, right? Do the homes have everything you would have in a modern home? Electricity, running water, showers, bathrooms, toilets, that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
yep.
no, that is an easy misconception to have, Jared. But yes, my house has a dishwasher, hot water, shower, a flushing toilet, regular GFCI protected outlets.
See,
I
there's my
even
mini
have
split.
high-speed internet.
Hey,
Like, I'm
that's
talking.
what we're connected on, right?
So
So there,
right. I mean, it has everything a normal house has, and because it's an alternative style home, it's actually really high performance. It stays cool in here when it's hot outside, and it's warm in here when it's cool outside. So, it has everything you would expect, and even a little more, I would say.
and you guys brought up something fascinating too. This is turning into the new American dream because home ownership is really hard. I mean, I'm down here in the valley, yeah, and home prices down here are just getting crazy, right? And things are moving further and further away from affordable for most folks, even in my generation and younger. And so, who are the people you guys are really seeing doing this? Is it younger buyers, 40 and under? Is it remote workers, retirees, or kind of like the full spectrum are kind of catching on to this?
Yes.
Yes.
Seems like it's everyone.
Yeah, I would say it's a full spectrum, Jared. We're not having any particular. I mean, I have clients of all age groups and all demographics and all income scales, and they work remotely. They don't mind commuting an hour to Sierra Vista or Tucson to get to work, or they'll come out here and they'll find work. They bring their businesses. They're landscapers. They want to start construction, whatever it is. Like, I wouldn't say there's any particular person I'm expecting to see walk through my door and want to do this thing. They just have to be, I guess, determined, because you have to have that determination to pull this off. It is different than just buying a house, right? You're typically buying raw land. Maybe there's a little bit of stuff there, but it's on you to develop it and provide the power and the water and the waste collection and whatever it is that you want to have. It's on you. There's not a 1-800 number to
Right.
call.
Yeah, and you mentioned this on the zoning piece too. And I was talking to Clay before the RU4 and the 4 acre minimum. Kind of explain a little bit more about why that matters. really what buyers need to understand. Like you talked about, there's no 800 number you can call. This is on you. I mean, it gives you some creative control, but also can be a little scary for people if they've never figured out how to do this before.
I guess I don't understand the question.
The question is
What are you
more or
asking?
less kind of walk me through, if you would, the minimum acre requirement and also the mindset somebody needs to have going into to take this project on.
So it is. We always say RU4, and most of the properties that we sell that are eligible are RU4. There's another zoning that I'm drawing a blank on, but it's R 3600 or something. Anyway, but yes, it has to be at least 4 acres. I don't know why, unless they're worried about somebody's house falling over, and if it does, they don't want it to land on their neighbor's house or something. I don't know, but anyway, it's a rural zoning, and yeah, the mindset, is different, but it's just you gotta, it's not the conventional make your payments and live in your home and pay to have somebody fix it. It is, as I think Sammy was stating, you've got to, take responsibility for yourself and what you're building. I'm going through well hell right now. My well pump went out after
Mm.
7 years. I just found out, and I'm having to get that fixed. But it's me. I'm not calling anyone to come in and fix it. They had a discussion the other day about, putting insurance on your property and, property owners insurance. And I've always had the opinion, I built it, I can build it again, so why insure it? Why waste the money when I've already, so that's me. But want to add something, Sammy?
Yeah, I just think in terms of like the mindset you need to take on, there's a lot of misleading information online when people watch YouTube videos or they're watching HGTV or they're just in the forums even like people share their successes. They don't talk about their failures as
Yeah.
much. Most people lick their wounds privately. So, you know, people get into their head that, oh, this is going to be easy and it's accessible for everyone. And like, we call it Hollywood, or we call it YouTube Hollywood out here because there's so
Yeah.
many YouTubers out here doing it, and I love them all to death. They're my neighbors. It's a small town feel out here, even though it's a big community. But there is, a bit of a misleading first step if you think you're going to go into it and just pull it off like the YouTubers do, because for everything they've successfully done, they've had 10 failures. So just don't be deterred when you're learning. That's the mentality that'll bring you to success.
No, that's a great way to put it too. What would you say to someone that says, Sammy, Clay, I'm ready to get off the grid. I've had enough of mainstream housing. I got 50 grand I can work with here. What can I do? Do you guys have a process that you would take somebody through to kind of advise them like, hey, I've never done this before, step by step, here's what you should do?
Well, my advice always is to make a scoreboard, just because there's so many options in Cochise County. Like you could be, in the valley up against the mountains, the national forest. You could be really isolated, which is good to some people. They want to be really far away, but also you could be close to town and, within 10 minutes of a hardware store and a post office. And so it's overwhelming. And a lot of people get into analysis paralysis. So my first bit of advice to someone in that situation is, hey, make a scoreboard. What's important to you? Is it views? Is it access to the national forest? Accessibility. Do you want to drive on a dirt road for 10 miles to get to your property? Do you want to be close to the post office? Do you need to be close to a doctor's office? Like these types of things, and assign point values to the listings that we talk about. And then that'll help narrow things down. Is water important? Is we going to be grid tied? Are you going to build solar? So it's a huge county. Cochise County is bigger than Connecticut, Vermont combined. So or maybe not Vermont, but I think it's New Hampshire and Connecticut combined. So it's a huge place. You could get whatever you're looking for, and $50,000 will get you a long way in Cochise County. You're going to need to supplement that over time. I spent about 50 grand to build my place, but over the course of 3 years. So if you have a plan to get a little income with 50,000, it's totally possible. The process is just a process of elimination and finding something you can tell yourself, I can live here. I can make this work. And if you can get past those steps, you're pretty much there.
That's good advice. So 50 grand gets you a long way. What do you think some of the biggest mistakes people make their first time trying this out, whether it be financially or logistically?
I think budget issues are 50 grand. It sounds like not a lot, but to some people, I get the calls from the people who I got $10,000. Can I make this happen? And, you just got to get realistic with them. Unfortunately, there's about a money you need to get started, and 50 grand's a good start, but 10,000 is not going to get you far. You're going to hardly find any property, let alone do anything to it. That's kind of an issue I seem to run into rather often, having to give them a reality check sometimes, so.
Right. And to build on that, I would say um, people want to build big things. They come
Yeah.
from traditional, right? 1,200 square foot is pretty small in real estate standards. And so they want to come out here and they want to build something, and immediately they're thinking about their in-laws and their kids and I moved there and all these things. And so they end up trying to build something that's too big and ends up being too expensive and too laborious to complete. But if you come into it with like just my needs met, you could build onto it later. And so if you build something small up front, you're setting yourself up for success because a lot of people come into it and want to build something that's just way too big, and they don't realize it until it's too late.
Gotcha. So, I mean, you guys are basically spokespersons now for what's going on in Cochise County, and whether you want to be or not. How did that kind of go about? How did you guys end up finding each other?
Through the
Well, there's like homestead groups, there are help groups out here. There's a couple sister groups. One's called the Barn Raisers in the north. I help facilitate that one. There's a Homestead Swappers in the south. We stay pretty networked online with a Facebook group that Clay runs called Supporters of the Cochise County Opt Out
Mhm.
group. And through those 3 and 4 networks, there's a lot of homesteader, off-gridder, owner, builder types staying in touch with each other. And Clay and I met through that network. And when he went off to start his own brokerage, it just was kind of natural to calibrate it in this direction.
That's really cool. I think Clay had mentioned to me October was opt-out month in Cochise County. So what was the strategy behind kinda turning that into an event?
Well, I was gonna say our real event's coming up in February. I mean,
Okay.
not a real, but our third annual opt-out expo, I call it, that I've been putting on for 3 years now, and it's really successful, is, February 7th in Elfrida,
It's
if
the
you've ever
sixth,
heard of
Clay.
Elfrida. And it's the community center there, and it's from 9 to 2 or something. We get about 300 people come through the door, and it's a great
Wow.
place to meet other people trying to do this and support each other and stuff. It's more, people always want it to be all organized and have meetings and everything. I say it's like anarchy when I put it on. It's like people just show up and just make it happen. But yeah, a friend of ours, Christian Sawyer, who's involved with the politics of it a lot, he ramrodded this opt-out month thing, and we didn't do much this year, but hopefully next year we're going to have some, the plans to have a big party or something, I think is what we want to do in October. But his theory is, because there's always resistance from the county, from the bureaucrats. Bureaucrats don't really like to opt out because it doesn't give them the power they bureaucrats actually like. So there's always that pushback from it, and he figured, and it makes sense if we make them have a opt out month. It's going to make it a little hard for them to get rid of the opt out permit because now it's a month, right? So that was the reasoning behind that, I believe.
Perfect. Can't give give them a reason to say no. Um,
Yeah.
so if someone reaches out to you, how quickly can you guys tell if they're a good fit for this lifestyle? Because it's not just about building a home. It's a total lifestyle change, right? It's total different way of doing things, different way of living. So who would be somebody that maybe this wouldn't be a good fit for?
Well, that's not for me to judge, Jared, really. Like, I am a real estate professional. It's on me to follow instructions. And so if a client approaches me and tells me this is what they want to do, I'm going to help them. And, if I see them going to make a decision that might lead them to financial ruin, I would advise them. But there are people out here, 78, 80 years old, wheelchair, part-time walkers, when they're moving around, they're doing this
Wow.
thing. So there isn't just like an obvious tell, like this person can't, like even when they come from the city and they're totally unaware of country living and they've never picked up a shovel or a wheelbarrow in their life, like that does not mean they can't do this. It really it really is something that's accessible to everyone, so long as they can follow their heart and know within their heart that they can do it. It's not up to me. I'll lead anyone into this chaos if they're willing to let it
I
happen.
like the way you phrase that, Sammy, because I think sometimes so much in life too, we tend to be a little intimidated by things that we don't understand in its entirety. We might have a sliver of idea or this, that, or the other thing, but it can be a little intimidating for folks. So it's nice to hear that it's a very kind of inclusive approach to it because people nowadays, I mean, especially with the way the world's going, and they get a little more protective over things. And so this idea will appeal to a lot of people, I believe. And so it's nice to hear that even if someone is, like you said, never picked up a shovel in their life or ever worked on a farm ever, that they can still go out and find success with this lifestyle. It's great.
Well, we also, we just don't dump people and walk away either. It seems like we always help them, but we, at least steer them towards one of these groups where they can meet other people and learn. I mean, that's how you learn is by doing stuff and learning how much work it really is involved by going to one of these get-togethers and helping build somebody's place. I always try to steer them that way if I can. You give them a start in that direction anyway.
That's good. It's good. So I gotta have some fun with you guys a little bit though. So inquiring minds, mainly me, want to know what is the most unique structure that you guys have seen built out there?
Probably Kyle's
Kyle,
greenhouse.
okay, walk me
You were
through
in there
Kyle's
with me.
greenhouse. I'm curious.
Okay, so Kyle is a fella out here. He runs a business called Promise Farms. He builds geodesic dome structures. He has a unique way of finishing them. I won't get into much detail, but he built a 64, maybe 68-foot diameter geodesic
Wow.
greenhouse on a bed on a stem wall of earth bags like Clay is building, and it's 3 stories and partially underground. It has waterfalls and fish and rivers and bunnies and butterflies, and there's fruit trees and cactus, and you could bench, walk over the lake and look at the fish swimming and go catch one to eat for breakfast. Well, it's pretty incredible,
Wow.
and I would consider it an alternative structure that is very unique out here. Yep.
It's like a unique little ecosystem he has just built right there in his home.
Yeah, he has different zones, like, right? So I'm not too particular on the garden lexicon, but he has, a zone down in the bottom floor and a different zone, tropical zone in the middle floor, and then the upper floor, like a more jungle zone. So he could grow bananas and kiwi, and he's just always got something in there.
That
And
is
the systems feed themselves. The fish poop in the water feeds the plants, and it's fertilized by the fish poop, and then the stuff from the trees falls into the lake, and that fish eat the tree and they digest. And so it's all, yeah, it's a self-contained, like one of those I don't know, those self-contained ecosystems in a bottle, but a big one that you can walk around in. It's kind of like the biosphere
yeah, I was
too.
gonna say
Okay.
biodome or something like that. Yeah.
It's like the biosphere too, that inside the greenhouse, that huge one.
Except it works.
It's in
This one
Arizona
works.
somewhere. Yeah, it's almost like that, but he built it himself,
Wow.
entirely by himself and his family. So that's got to be one of the when I saw it, Clay was there actually. So yeah, that's probably the most unique structure I've seen out here.
And
Maybe
he's a
his
great
too.
support too, building homes for people using his geodesic foam. I call them foam domes because he actually builds a framework and then sprays foam over the whole thing. And it's a really affordable way to get into a house if you don't want to build it yourself. He'll give you this, he'll help you set up with this structure that you just need to finish out, and it's a great way to get into a pretty super insulated house that's sturdy and all that. And I don't think there's any code at all that would approve it because nobody's ever heard of it before, but it sure works, so.
It is something that Kyle has kind of spearheaded himself. I'm sure there's been variations of it, but he could put up a shell in about 3 days, shell of a house in 3 days, and then it's just on you to finish it and put cabinets and, a rooms. You could internal framing, but but Kyle could put up a huge, 60, 80-foot dome in like 3 or 4 days.
Sounds like Kyle's got some either some architecture or scientific backing there, because like knowing that stuff that's pretty amazing, man. Just to be able to crank that out and figure out, especially
He's
when
a
you're talking
smart
about
guy.
like the ecosystem and how it all runs together. I mean, the biology there that's really impressive for sure.
Well, the nice thing is, Jared, just to build on that a little bit, is like domes. You don't really need to be an architect or an engineer to be familiar with domes, right? Like domes are circular, they're really strong, they could take a tremendous load. It would be almost impossible to build a dome wrong. If you just follow the compass and you have a circle and it is an archway, there's just a few rules of thumb you can follow, but you don't need formal training to be a dome builder. I live in a dome home, and I have, I guess I have formal training, but you don't need it. That's my point.
Oh, that's good. So to sum this all up for anyone watching this, if you are struggling to buy a home, and I see this in the mortgage industry all the time, especially with rates where they are these days and home values creeping up and up and up and up and up just to even get started, and the alternative lifestyle has appealed to you, then I would get in touch with Clay and get in touch with Sammy. They can hold your hand through a lot of this or refer you to the right people in the community to help you make a good decision, to help you understand what the process looks like, to help you understand what the financial application looks like. And it sounds to me like the good news is too, this is starting to create its own community, particularly in Cochise County, where everyone kind of supports each other and this lifestyle to be able to have the American dream and not have to pay $1 million for it. That's from what I'm getting.
True.
Well, perfect.
But but with that
Yeah.
being said, Jared, it would sure be nice if we could come up with some financing that would work for alternative structures. Some sort of alternative financing is the next step.
Yeah, I know we talked about that before, Clay. I mean, so me and being in mortgage banking as long as I have, one of the biggest detriments to unique properties is always going to be comparables, right? Everything's based on a value system. So if you can show comps for something, typically you can add a value to it. When it comes to placing a value on a unique structure, it's very difficult unless there's a lot of consistency there, right? And so I think for a bank to feel comfortable with it. Now, I'm not in underwriting. Okay. So I want to be really clear. Like I'm more on the front end. I like working with people and finding the solution to this stuff, not a reason to say no. But the hardest part for properties like this, and where I'm from in Oregon, you run into some unique structures a lot. And so it's difficult. It's difficult. Now, if you can get 2 to 3 that are within a similar square footage, similar type of build, materials, all that kind of stuff, and property size, you have a shot and you can place a value on that. But that's usually where the banks have a big problem with it, because they can't, hey, what's this worth? We really don't know. We know what the raw materials cost. Okay, we can inventory that. We can do that. But and then it also comes into a situation of, I think a moral question for you, Clay, because do you want banks being involved in this process? Because when someone has their money involved in it, then they also have a say involved in it, right? And there's certain codes that kind of come into it, and legislature, and the bureaucracy you guys were talking about that nobody really enjoys. So it's this fine line of if banks start getting involved in this type of financing, there's going to be rules and regulations applied to it that maybe don't sit so well with people that are looking to pursue this kind of a life. What do you guys think about that?
Well, that I'm saying, I envision an alternative whole system. Like, maybe private financiers get together
Yeah.
and start making, 10-year loans on stuff. The thing is they're more affordable, so you don't have to have the 40-year mortgage on them. And I do sell them finance, home owner finance all the time. That's kind of what we have to do a lot of times. And then a lot of people, when they're building, that's the question. So if I build this alternative home, will I be able to sell it? Is a question I hear often.
Yeah.
And it's usually like, well, if you're willing to, finance it yourself, you probably can. If you find a buyer, if you usually try to get a good down payment for them and stuff, but yeah, it just seems it's going to have to be something alternative, not just the typical mortgage, So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
What do you think, Sammy? Should the banks get involved in something like this?
I typically get cold feet once there's banking lenders involved with these types of transactions, because they are going to bring in appraisers and they're going to want comparables, and definitely Cochise County does not have good comparables. So I don't love it, but often enough we do get into that jam where it's like, well, I need to have water, I need to have power, and I kind of need to be in this specific area, and I'm just 10 grand short, and I can't find anyone to give me a 10 or 15, $20,000 loan for this land. So sometimes an angel investor would be nice, whether that comes from a banker or a private lender. I don't know what the solution is. I just know that lending typically mucks up these alternative transaction type deals.
Guess we're saying if there's any independent financiers out there that'd be interested, will be willing to talk to them about this. So
Right.
anyone
Any
listening to
millionaires
this,
out
give me
there
a call.
listening to this, I want you
A-
to just let us know.
Absolutely. That's the other thing too. Before we wrap up here, anyone that happens to be watching this, you just never know. When it goes out on YouTube, you just never know who's going to see it and when. I'll make sure that we get your guys' contact information in the video. That way they can reach out to you, especially people that are looking to be a part of this lifestyle and kind of live that American dream can reach out to you and, contact you and kind of take it step by step. Thank you guys so much for coming on today and talking about this.
Mhm.
Listeners, thank you so much for joining us. Please like and subscribe for more in-depth real estate knowledge. Once again, I will put Sammy and Clay's information in the video so you guys can reach out to them and have a one-on-one discussion about this. I'm Jared Sawyer. Goodbye and take care.